Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our heroic super guide for Lord Victor Nefarius. Now, this boss is in the close to impossible category. Man, is he hard. He starts with 10 mana right out of the gate to be able to flood the board with a ton of high-powered minions while you're sitting there on 2 mana being like, help? And then what's worse is even if you somehow manage to deal with his board, and there's a few tricks you can use to sort of claw back into the game, survive, and eventually take control, he gets massive card advantage by having a hero power that gives him a random spell every single turn. Just bam. And often, even when you do amazingly to survive and stabilize and take advantage, just, you know, through pure RNG, he can just wipe you out by like randomly getting a Twisting Nether for free, randomly getting a Flame Strike, randomly getting a Polymorph on a big threat of yours, randomly getting a Pyroblast to finish you off for extra damage. There's a lot that can go wrong. So this is definitely up there in the what I call the almost impossible category. Not impossible, because we did manage to beat him with every single hero class, and even eventually a deck of basic and common cards only. Now, the common strategies, it'll depend, it varies a bit by deck. I'll show you a few strategies on a per deck basis, but often you want to have tools to sort of clear the board, obviously, because he floods the board with a lot of minions. Heal up after that. Molten Giants often work well to get big threats out as sort of a reward for getting low, and then have some sort of way to just eventually run him through all his cards and then hope you don't get too lucky with the RNG spells that he generates. With that said, let's jump into some real decks. So first off, we have the Extreme Ramp Druid that I used at the time to beat him. Innovates, Wild Growths, Grove Tenders, because, you know, there weren't that many ramp options yet. Nourish, of course, as well. Nowadays, you could obviously throw in Jade Blossoms and other tools, like the 4/4 Mire Keeper. Then we have good value minions, like Piloted Shredder, Druid of the Claw, some nice big taunts like Ancient of War and Sunwalker to help you stabilize, as is the Foe Reaper, the one Tree of Life to essentially act as a Reno to be able to heal you up to full if you have basically stabilized in terms of the board and sort of run him out of cards, but just need to get your life total back. Molten Giants, like we talked about, to get some big threats out as a sort of reward for getting low on health. And Sea Giants are the other good giants to run, because he does kind of flood the board with minions early because he has so much mana to utilize that that's another way to sort of, if he plays a bunch of threats, at least get something big out. And we do have Sun Fury Protectors to taunt these up, because often if he has a big board and gets you low, you'll need to not only play the Molten Giants or Sea Giants, but taunt them up so that he has to lose minions running into them, and that it, you know, saves your face damage, so you can stabilize from that. For a Hunter, in modern times, I used a Reno Hunter deck, which is not something you'll see often. And note that there are a few 2-ofs that I found just too damn good to not include 2 copies of. So we have 2 Hunter's Marks for helping you take out big minions, because he will play a bunch. 2 Mad Scientists, because cheating out secrets like Misdirection to help his things trade into each other, Freezing Trap to freeze some big thing, Explosive Trap to help clear the board. Just so important to helping you gain tempo and sort of survive. You have other things to benefit from the secrets, like Cloaked Huntress, and we also have other AoE in terms of Explosive Sheep. But yeah, sorry, the other 2 of them included Deadly Shot, again, tools to get rid of big minions you just have to have or you will be way behind. Saboteurs, to be able to force his hero power that's really annoying to at least have to cost a lot of mana, so that he, you know, doesn't, basically spends a whole turn getting his random spells to give you more opportunity to get on top of the board. High Main's just 2 good value, and Call of the Wild as late game threats. And Molten Giants, because again, you need to get those big threats out to be able to kill him eventually, because even if you run him out of cards, he'll keep generating his spells. It's hard to sort of beat him on a value basis, because he has, in a certain sense, like unlimited value. So you do need some big threats, and to get a bit lucky that he doesn't draw the perfect spells as answers to them. We have a few, you know, powerful utilities like Alexstrasza, Sylvanas, Unleashed help with board clear, Big Game Hunter, another thing to take out big guys, Kill Command and Animal Companions, your usual utility hunter tools, and some early 1-drops to help stabilize the board a bit, including Mistress of Mixtures, which will heal you back up. The Mage deck I used back in the day was kind of an interesting one. Similar themes with Molten Giants and Explosive Sheeps for board clear. Doomsayer, good minion to potentially get out, comboing with Frost Nova, or if he doesn't play too threatening an early board, you might be lucky and be able to get the Doomsayer to go off. You can also just play it preemptively onto boards if you don't have a big threat to put out, just slows him down a turn. You have your usual ice blocks to buy you life, duplicates to get more value on important minions like Thorisons, Antoniduses, that can essentially, Molten Giants, those can all be game winning. And then Echo of Medivh, another way to just buy you more value. If you can get 2 Molten Giants out, Echo of Medivh them, potentially get 2 more out that turn, and give a lot of threat if he doesn't have, a Twisting Nether or something. Or save it up for later to keep putting out big threats. Alexstrasza can keep healing you or set him to 15 to help speed up his eventual demise, and man is it eventual. Flame Strike, obviously important, with Blizzards, also can pair with Doomsayer, by the way. Important to have AoE because he will just, over the course of the game, play a ton of minions. He can pretty easily, just refill his hand and spew out a bunch of sort of mid-range minions onto the board. And that's the deck. You're looking to essentially eventually accrue enough value to not only stabilize and stay ahead, but be able to stay ahead of his hero power, constantly buying him more cards and more time. Back to modern decks, which will be the rest that we look at. Paladin is looking to outlast Lord Victor Nefarius. And this deck is built around playing a bunch of good Death Rattle minions and then N'Zothing them back, as well as having a ton of healing in the form of forbidden healings, Alexstrasza to heal you back up, and heal bots. You have a lot of board clears, your Wild Pyro Equality combos, your Equality Consecration combos. You have board management tools like Eadric, The Pure, Sunkeeper Tarim. In terms of your Death Rattle minions, you do the Fugan and Starlag package to be able to get Thaddeus and potentially bring back yet another Thaddeus with N'Zoth. Tyrion, always amazing. Sneed, so there's plenty of threats and firepower. The bigger challenge is staying alive early. That's why you have your very cheap board clears. If he spews out his hand, plays a ton of stuff, you get out a Wild Pyro Equality and clear the board. You can heal back up if you're low on life, preemptively play Doomsayers to keep the board pretty managed, eventually get back a bunch of threats through N'Zoth. That's how you end up winning the game. While we're speaking of N'Zoth decks, Priest, I used a little bit of a similar model, where Priest also has the advantage of being able to run Awaken the Maker, so that when you do get a bunch of Death Rattles out, again the Fugan Starlag combo, etc., you eventually N'Zoth. You'll eventually also get Amara to be able to set you back to 40 and make you feel a lot better that you're not as close to death. Similar tools to the Paladin deck, not quite as much healing, but you do have utilities like Power Word Glory, Doomsayers again to keep the board clear, Shadow Vision to get you critical spells like Pain and Death when you need them, and Light Bomb can be, if he does manage to just get way ahead on board with a bunch of big threats, or things like Elixir or Pain, Light Bomb just cleans that all up magically. For Rogue, we went with the good old milling. Now, there is potential to essentially mill him because his hands are usually so full because he draws a bunch of cards at the beginning. He has a hero power that keeps giving him additional cards. He has cards that still draw him more cards. So he will often be like close to a full hand. So if you do get things out like Cold Light Oracles, and you will, it's very easy to do it in a way where you're milling all of his cards, you vanish stuff back, and you can Cold Light again. You can burn, if you're lucky, you burn a third of his deck, and that reduces a lot the threats you need to deal with, and gets him to fatigue more quickly, and then he can start taking a lot of damage through fatigue as you try to survive whatever additional spells he cooks up. You have gadgets on to cycle through your deck quicker, Sylvanas to just help with board maintenance, and Saps to get rid of his things. Again, if you're filling up his hand in Cold Light Oracling, these can destroy his minions, as can a well-timed, Cold Light Prep Vanish kind of play. And you do have the Molten Giants as your traditional threat to help do extra damage and finish him off. Shaman, as is so often the case, benefits a lot from Jade synergies. So you have a lot of tools in that capacity: Jade Claws, Jade Lightning, Eye of Blackpaw, your Jade Chieftains, to just get you additional value from playing those otherwise decent minions themselves. We do the trick I like to do a lot of including an elemental that lets you Calamos the following turn. Sometimes I do a fire elemental. In this case I did a glacial shard to act as sort of a backup of being able to freeze something that's pretty dangerous to you. Like a big 8/8 or something, as you're about to Calamos the next turn. Just buys you some time, essentially. We again run N'Zoth with some helpful death rattles like Fugan and Starlag. We have the Eye of Blackpaw, which we'll bring back for even more Jades. Heal bots for healing, Doomsayers to help manage the board, and our very typical Molten Giant threat. Put together a pretty potent package for Shaman. In the case of Warlock, we actually went with a similar theme that we used against Cro-Magus, and it worked out pretty well. It's ambitious, playing Lucari Sacrifice and being able to discard a few cards with Soulfire, Librarian, and Doomguard, but really relying on eventually a big Deathwing turn to clear his board, discard a bunch of your cards, get the Nether Portal that then you can just be summoning these 3/2s and essentially getting infinite value that will probably even outpace the spells he can get. Now it is a Reno deck, so we also run Reno, Cruel the Unshackled, Kazaka, some very powerful tools, board clears in the form of Abyssal Enforcer, Twisting Nether, single target removal with Corruption and Blast Crystal Potion, even multi-removal with Corrupting Mist, a powerhouse of a variety of different tools, Siphon Soul of course, and heal bots to help with your Reno. And Molten Giant, the usual threat, Jaraxxus, Mal'Ganis, there's sort of everything in here. The problem is, because it's a one-of deck, there is a bit of inconsistency. You sort of need to draw the right things in the right sequence. Mind Control Tech's a good one too, because he does tend to flood the board with minions. The two-ofs we do have are Doomsayers, just so important for board maintenance early on. You want to get that out very early. And Void Callers for just the chain of bringing out free demons, so important for giving you tempo early on to help you survive and be able to get to the turns you need to be able to do the damage you need. Shadow Flame's also a pretty critical one to be able to do a big board clear. Sort of once you do have a board advantage and he floods the board with minions again, it's often a clean way to remove his board again and just have a big board advantage at that point. Speaking of quests, we managed to do it with the Warrior quest as well. Fireplume's Heart, which you eventually will play enough taunts with your Stonehill Defenders, Tar Creepers, Bloodhoof Braves, Armor Smiths, etc. Direhorn Hatchings, Autohorn Dinery. Pretty similar to early Taunt Warrior lists that were run. Doomsayers to help again with keeping that early board clear. We do have the Shield Block, Shield Slam combo. Gorehowl to just get you tons of value if you're safe on life. Brawl to help deal with his scary boards. And eventually the idea is to complete the quest and then just to be able to fire off these 8 damage bursts that will eventually just accumulate you a huge amount of value and win you the game. Last was the challenge of beating him with a deck of basic and common cards only. Man, was this tricky. But I eventually settled on a deck that came close a few times and eventually triumphed. One of the key things you're going for in this deck to really give you a leg up early on is to get off a duplicate that you often cheat out with a Mad Scientist. Get off a duplicate on the single free 0 mana help that you get from Ragnaros. Now, if you get the deal 8 damage randomly, it kind of sucks. But if you get the 6/3 that deals 6 damage as a battle cry for 0, get 2 more of those, or get 2 more of the 6/6s. The 4/5 is not as useful, but you'll take 0 mana 4/5 Wind Furies that you can pummel out. that can help you stabilize a ton and really not get too close to dying early on and sort of have a fighting chance. Then you eventually slowly grind him down, grind him out of options. By the way, you're seeing a screenshot of me beating it when I played him on my iPad just before I won. So you also have a lot of tools which just provide you more value, like the Forgotten Torches, which put extra spells in your deck. The duplicates we talked about, Ethereal Conjurers give you another spell. Firelands Portals kill something and give you another minion. So you're really looking to extend that value, eventually run him out of cards and be able to do enough damage to his face while you're getting some help from fatigue. I still almost lost this game because literally once he was fatigued, he did his random spell into a Kabbalist Tomb that gave him a frozen clone that included a frozen clone that gave him even more cards when I played a minion. It was really frustrating. The other interesting one we have here is Skelemancer, so if you do eventually get some threats out on the board and have some board control, gives you a way to get a big threat out there. It sort of discourages some of his AoE. I'm thinking a Bone Mare might help to sort of force activating this, because sometimes you'll just like ignore it a bunch. I don't know whether the AI is just smart or I was unlucky, but it could force the issue. Mirror Entity is also a nice way to sort of get some of his nice big minions essentially for free. Though you need to be a little bit lucky that he doesn't play something crappy, obviously. And that's the idea, just trying to get as much value as possible out of this deck of common cards only. And it is possible to beat him with it. We came close a couple times and did finally get it on the sort of third attempt where we were pretty close, where we were in the zone of potentially winning, starting with that great duplicates combo on the 6/3 that deals 6 damage. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you can beat heroic Lord Victor Nefarius, as crazy hard as he is, with every single class and even a deck of basic and common cards only. Good luck out there. See you next time.